about the same or failing expectations. Now, this could be overall expectations. This could be mine. It's probably about the same of that, but because I had about the same amount of expectations about everyone else. Maybe some different, but this is mostly around what everyone thought. But before we get into this video, of course, I did have different records. Maybe not, but I had my own opinion. So just want to let you know, you can go check my predictions on my playlist. But as we do kick off today's episode, I do want to thank y'all for all the support on the videos. We're close to 1K. We're at 971, so let's make sure to get to 1K soon. We also will have a Madden live stream probably whenever that hits, so I do want to try to get that soon as we can ASAP. To 1K, it was a big dream of mine 2 years ago to hit at least 1K. Well, hopefully we want to hit that to a bigger milestone eventually, but right now 1K is definitely a great thing for a YouTuber like me. And without further ado, let's get right into this video. Here we go, Dog Squad. It's time for exceeding about the same and failing expectations. Title should probably be deciding the difference of expectations of season or something. I don't know. I'll think of the title when I make this video. So we're gonna start with the Arizona Cardinals, and that has been exceeding. Look, Cardinals have already hit 6 wins. We didn't expect them. I didn't expect them to be this good. I thought Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a good addition, but I didn't think it'd be enough. The defense hasn't been as good as in the past, but they've been much better this year. They've had a good amount of talent. Kyler Murray's been playing like a top 10 QB. I didn't really expect him to do that. I don't think really many people did expect the Cardinals to be doing that, to be having Kyler Murray play at a great level. Their coaching to be much better. People may have, but, I don't think most people did. Coming up is next year, Atlanta Falcons. Probably about the same, You could say failing, you could say exceeding. It's probably about the same. We all expect them to be a better team this year. They got a new coach. They got Kirko Chains at QB. They got great receivers. They got Bijan running back. Their defense is good. Has been on and off this year. They were kind of like that on defense kind of last year, probably better on defense they were. We kind of expect them at this point. We're at a certain point right now. Now I'll do a video at the end of the season 4 weeks if it exceeded or failing. They can be easily changed. They're about the same, where the season ended up and how they did during the season. But this is as of right now that the Falcons are about where we thought. About 6 and 7 wins. Playing like having the talent like we thought they would. Not being the same old Arthur Smith Falcons like last year. That's not what's happening, but they're also probably not exceeding it either. They're not exceeding it. We kind of figured they'd be in this position around now. At least I did. Ravens, that's a tough one. They are probably about the same. I don't really see a way I can put them exceeding. You could probably say failing, because the way they played, but they got 4 losses, and Lamar's playing at MVP level. Derrick Henry, we knew he'd be playing well. You knew he'd be in the chase for MVP. It's not that surprising. We knew that the Ravens would be pulling the Ravens into it. I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but I did have them. What did I have them do? I had them in the. I think I had them in the AFC Championship game, losing to the. No. I had the Chiefs and Texans. That's right. I had them losing to the Texans in the divisional, but. We'll see what happens. I thought the Texans would be better. We'll talk about Houston in just a bit. But the Ravens, they're looking like the same. Now, their defense is not as good, so I guess you could technically say failing, but their offense is good. I honestly think it's high power, I think it's honestly more high power last year. And what do you expect? You got to know you got a better running back. It's really not that hard to explain at all. It's a better offense. I know their defense is inconsistent, but again, with this defense, it steps up in on and off situations. So that's why we're probably saying they're about the same. You could technically say failing, but it's kind of hard. The Ravens are a top 5 team right now. It's kind of hard to say failing in anything. They're just about the same as we probably all thought. The Bills, they're exceeding expectations. They were not picked to be a playoff team. A lot of people did not think. I didn't even think they would. Well, actually, I did. I just had them losing in the first round of the Bengals, which. My Super Bowl could be right, Lions and Chiefs, so that's a good thing. And we'll, of course, do reviewing my playoff bracket and predictions later in the after the season's over and all that. But probably after regular season, we'll do, reviewing all the records. But they weren't expected to be a playoff game. We didn't know how the receivers would do. We didn't know the defensive players left. They had key defensive players that were veterans and that were good players that left. That is not the exact same thing that we thought Buffalo would be doing. The defense, not a lot of people, including me, thought that their defense would be good this year. Now, I'm not saying they've been elite, but they haven't been bad at all this year. And obviously, we knew Josh Allen would still, I think, ball out. We didn't think he'd ball out this much. We didn't think that the receivers would get on track. We didn't honestly think that would happen. And they've obviously been good. Dalton Kincaid, Knox, Keon Coleman. I mean, a lot of them are just they're receivers that are underrated. They don't have all the hype, but they are definitely putting up points on Sunday. Definitely putting up good yards. That's good for Buffalo, and they're definitely exceeding expectations. Carolina, I honestly don't know. With Carolina, they have 3 wins, but part of me kind of wants to say a little bit of exceeding. I don't know, man. The Panthers are tough. They're not tough, but they're a tough choice. Part of me wants to go with exceeding because it's like, I wish they had it in between, about the same exceeding. If I'm thinking this much, I might just have to go about the same. Because even though they're playing better, yeah, they've still got 3 wins. Bryce is playing better. They technically are exceeding, but at the same time, they're not. I didn't say they're exceeding my expectations, but overall expectations were them to probably be I guess you could say maybe exceeding expectations. I had 2 to 3 wins. Right now, they're around the same. Maybe exceeding. I just can't fully go exceeding. I don't have enough confidence. But this team is going to probably be exceeding expectations, and they probably are to some people right now. But at the end of the year, this team will have probably about 4 or 5 wins. Maybe Bryce is playing much better than he was. Just need to learn from Andy Dalton. I do think Chuba Hubbard is playing better as a running back. They got a better coach now. Their defense is still, on and off. They got a pretty good secondary out of Carolina. So I think if they just get their offense together, they can probably maybe get better throughout the years. Be the next Detroit Lions. Maybe coming up from a really bad team to a really good team. Who knows what Carolina's going to do? But I think they're about the same. But this is about the same. I honestly could put in between about the same and exceeding. Chicago. They've just not been the team. I thought they'd be a much high-powered offense. Right now, I think their defense was good enough. They got at least good rush defense. I just didn't see, and I think that also falls on the OC, and they fired him. They have much better offense, but Matt Eberflus, I definitely think, sorry, I pronounced his name, but definitely I think preparation issues, finding ways to win games is an issue from him. I don't think he's the right coach for Chicago. I think he's affecting them. Caleb's playing well. He's playing better now. He's able to get some more receivers. Keenan Allen's playing better. It's a good Bears team, but they just needed to refresh. It's kind of like Kansas in college football. I think they started like this at the beginning of the season. I think they'd be better. I just don't think they'd be winning as many games, because they're still on their losing streak. But I think they'd be off to a better start at least than they are now. But Chicago was winning games at the beginning of the season, but not as many as we thought. Bengals, they're failing. You could say, oh, well, I thought Cincinnati was, going to be still bad. No, I don't really think a lot of people did. We all thought they'd be regrouping themselves, with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase looking much better. And they have. Those two have. They've been a good offense, but now their defense is bad. Their defense is terrible. It's not a good defense. That affects them from winning games, and that's how they lose games. Their defense just isn't good, allowing way too many points about every single game. The Ravens game, we saw them letting up so many points to the Ravens offense. And I understand that's a good offense, but just way too many points. About 35 that game. I think they did the same thing when they played in Cincinnati. Just not a good defense, and that's why defense wins championships, affecting way too many difference between wins and losses. It's just not a good Bengals team when it comes to that. And not even their offense is consistent all the time, but most likely they would probably put up a lot of points, depending on also who you play with, maybe a strong defense. Speaking of the Browns, speaking of the strong defenses, the Browns failing. This team had a strong defense last year. They're not that same defense this year. They have not. And they didn't really use anyone on defense, too. They just, honestly, their OC, they got Ken Dorsey of the Bills. The Bills even fired him, and now the Browns thought it would be a good idea to have him. Well, you see that offense is not doing well. Their defense is doing fine, honestly. Like I said, they're not doing as well, but their defense is inconsistent. I honestly don't know why their defense is doing worse. I honestly think it might be a coaching issue. Maybe they're just not having a good season. That could honestly be another key part to it. And just, it's not, and you had Deshaun Watson affecting stuff. Now, he's hurt for the season. Jameis is trying to maybe get this team back, but he just can't. And the people saying fire Kevin Stefanski, he's a good coach. He is. It's just trouble around him, and the GM is also affecting it. Speaking of GM, Jerry Jones, man, failing expectations. The Dallas Cowboys were expecting to be around maybe a 10-win team this year, and I had them at that too. But with the injuries and the offense not playing well, and Dak not on his MVP level, and him getting hurt for the season, and the defense struggling in the beginning of the year, and then also having those fourth quarter let-ups, that's also not a good thing. You know, Mike McCarthy's play calling has also been questionable some of the time. You know, and I mean he coached well the other day. He's just not he's not having a good coaching year. Jerry Jones said all in. He didn't go all in. What do you expect? You know, you couldn't stop the run for a lot of games. You're worse in running. You have no run game. What do you expect? And this is exactly what comes up. But just didn't think it would be this bad. Moving on, Broncos is exceeding expectations, especially Bo Nix. He's definitely exceeding expectations. You know, I did not honestly think he'd be that good in the NFL. I didn't really see much out of him. I saw much out of him in college. Just I didn't really see much going into his first year in the NFL. But he's been playing really well so far this year. Jane Daniels is kind of dropping in that situation in the offensive rookie of the year. Bo Nix could definitely not. The Cortland Sutton does now have a better QB now. You know, Sean Payton's looking much better as a coach. Their defense is terrific. Probably one of the best defenses out there next to the Vikings. A really good defense has and. Patrick Surtain, one of the best corners in the league, probably definitely top 10. But he was also banged up for a while. But, Broncos still have one of the best defenses this year to keep them from wins, especially when we had to keep getting the offense to see if they were going to get rolling one bit at all. And they have been. They've been doing much better. And this is why the Broncos team is 6-5, 7-5, and exceeding expectations. Moving on, Detroit Lions. They're definitely exceeding it. I honestly thought... I guess you could really say about the same, but no one thought they would have a 10-1 record going into this year. Or around now, no one really thought they'd be 10-1. No one really would. I thought they'd maybe be like around with like maybe 7-3, maybe it's Julian Edelman. No one really thought they would be like almost undefeated if it wasn't for that Tampa loss. No one really would be thinking that at this point. I had them win the Super Bowl, of course, but Jared Goff's playing out of his mind this year. So that's that 5 interception game. The duo is crazy. We knew about David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously being a really good running back duo, one of the best in the league. Jameson Williams has been playing much better. He was playing well last year, but he's now on a higher level. So is Amon St. Brown, same about guy for him. The defense is much better on the pass situation than the run is. Actually, the pass isn't even honestly that good either. So I guess really the pass is bad too. But I think it's still better than last year. They weren't really good in the pass last year. But they're playing at a more of elite level. Dan Campbell's getting more and better as a coach. For the Detroit Lions, has been getting better every year. This Lions team could definitely win the Super Bowl. They've been playing like it. They got a high-powered offense, and that's one of the reasons why they can win the Super Bowl. Another NFC North team, the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, about the same. Honestly, thought they'd be a 3-4 loss team right now, and maybe 2 losses at this point. Yeah, you could maybe say exceeding, but no. A lot of us thought the Green Bay Packers would be a much better team. A lot of us, some people even thought they'd be Super Bowl contenders. I don't think they are, but we kind of thought they'd be right now around the same thing. And I'm not doing this video to predict where would they be at that moment. I'm not looking at, oh, well, I had them at 2 losses, so no. No, I'm obviously not doing that. I'm just saying at this point, is this beating your is this kind of like what you were thinking of? Like, yes or no or maybe. Like, something like that. Green Bay is definitely, they're definitely a team that I thought would be doing much better. I thought Jordan Love would be a top 10 QB this year. He's been playing like one at times. Josh Jacobs, I expected maybe to do much better than he was on the Las Vegas Raiders because he's not on a crappy team. And I knew their defense would be well. They didn't have Joe Barry anymore, and that looks like they've been doing. Xavier McKinney, they somehow leads the league in interceptions. Actually, well, not really somehow, but somehow left the Giants and leads the league in interceptions. Can show much what a team can do, and their receivers are much better now. At the end of the season, I'm like, they're underrated. Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, all of them are underrated. Jaden Reed. And it's like, some people were like, not agreeing to that. Well, they are. They're showing this year that they are, and this is offense that is high, that can be high-powered at moments. When they get going, they get going. All right, the Houston Texans. They're failing. They're failing expectations. Look, I did not honestly expect that the Houston Texans were going to be at 7-5 this year, right now, or I thought they'd be going maybe towards the Super Bowl, being the Super Bowl contenders. Well, I understand losing Stephon Diggs, but there's C.J. Stroud's not having a good year. Not the year that we thought he would. Joe Mixon is doing really well, though. He's probably one of the best offensive players on the team. Nico's doing really well, and Tank Dell doesn't look like he's having the seasons I kind of thought he would. I thought he'd be much better, but much more. Getting more yards, getting more TDs. I honestly thought he'd be more produceful on the field than he would. And then, of course, their defense doesn't also look top 10 either, like I thought they would. Not really, kind of confusing with Houston. Like I said, I know some injuries, but kind of confusing with DeMeco Ryans' Houston team. Colts. Yeah, I kind of thought they'd be a mid-team. This was the end of the year and they had like a losing record. Yeah, I'd say failing expectations, but this is the Falcons team. I thought, I kind of figured maybe they would be winning some games that were good, losing some games that were bad or good, or just bad. I thought they'd be a mid-team, maybe below average, around the same. The Colts team doesn't surprise me, and they're worse. I think they're worse than last year, but this Colts team doesn't surprise me in the way they've been playing. But they're going to figure it out, and I think with Anthony Richardson, definitely can get better. All right, Jaguars definitely failing. What does it take to go from 8-3 last year, and now you're on what? And I think you've only won 3 games since. You had a choke job last year, didn't even make the playoffs, and then you come over here and suck this year. And I can say it has to do with injuries. But not like T-Law wasn't playing that well. Doug Pearson doesn't seem to be that coach that we saw win a Super Bowl. Their defense is one of the worst in the league. It's as simple as that. Travis Etienne got hurt as well. They also don't have as good a receiving core. That equals a bad team. Chiefs. They're exceeding expectations. Even though they're not playing as well, their defense is pretty good. They're exceeding expectations. Not really I thought they'd have one loss this season. Even though I know they were about the same team, I know you could probably say, oh, well, we kind of think that the Chiefs would be. Maybe they could even be considered failures. No. You can't say that. They only have one loss and they're finding ways to win. We kind of figured they'd be a good team at this point. They're not a dominant team, but I can't really say they're failing, so I'm just going to say exceeding. I can't really question they're still a one-loss team. They still got the Patrick Mahomes. I know he's not playing that well this year, as we probably thought. But if we were doing quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes would be failing because we don't really expect him to be doing that, to not really put up the numbers and putting up the offensive points situations like before. Even though he's got better receivers this year too than he did before. Moving on, the Raiders failing expectations. You know, I thought Antonio Pierce would get this team together, but it doesn't seem like it. You don't have Josh Jacobs anymore. You don't have Devontae Adams anymore. You don't even have Gardner Minshew anymore. And this defense is really the only thing that's keeping you maybe alive. I am fully that all the time. This defense isn't even that good either. You know, Max Crosby's a really good defensive player, and I think he should switch teams. This team's wasting his career. This Raiders team has never been good. I'm not saying Antonio Pierce looked good at first. He just hasn't seemed to be doing anything since. But now they're bringing Aiden O'Connell in. Now we'll just see what he does. But this Raider team is going to probably be eliminated within the next few games, and they're probably not going to win another one. I mean, I could see some crap them losing almost to the Chiefs beating the Chiefs this week, maybe almost beating them. I mean, it's really kind of hard to say that the Chiefs were about the same team that we kind of thought. I didn't expect them to have one loss. I didn't expect them to be winning this many games. You know, I didn't. And the main reason I think it is because they've just been doing really well on defense. I don't really think it's their offense. If we were going by offenses, it'd probably be failing, you know, expecting them to put up more points. And they did beat Baltimore. You know, they did beat the Niners, which they aren't as good, I guess, as good this year. They did beat the Chargers, so they've beaten good teams this year. They did beat Denver. So, you know, they're not a bad team, of course, and they're not a elite team. But I do think the Chiefs, with one loss, they almost lost to the Panthers, but I do think that they are exceeding expectations because no one thought we'd be talking about that. It's just kind of confusing with the Chiefs. I really don't want to put, but I will just put one loss. But the Raiders, though, sorry I got off focus, but the Raiders definitely, you can tell that this team is not the same. They don't seem to have also a lot of more confidence, too. They just don't seem to. I mean, maybe the other day they looked better against Denver, but this team just doesn't seem to be, I don't know, they just don't seem to be that same team I thought they would be. The Chargers exceeding expectations. I thought they'd be, you know, mid this year. You know, it would take some minute for John Harbaugh to get going. You know, I thought they didn't have Eckler anymore. You know, they didn't have Keenan Allen anymore. I didn't know what they'd do. But they've gotten following with Tyler McConkey and all that. They've done well with them. Quentin Johnston's even had some good games. They're using him more. Their defense is much better. They got one of the best defenses in the league. You know, they've got a really good. They got a good team at this point. You know, they almost beat Baltimore the other day. Still do. You know, I know they haven't. I think they only beaten one team with a .500 record, but still, they're exceeding expectations. We didn't expect them to be a better team. You know, maybe some people did. And I could be wrong. Maybe some people thought they'd have a good record this year, but I don't think many people honestly thought they would be sitting at the battling maybe 3 games behind the Chiefs. Really, not a lot of people thought that. People did, but I don't think a lot of people thought that the Chargers would be doing this good. The Rams, you know, I mean, yeah. This was kind of tough because I don't really know. I had the Rams. I thought they'd be playing better. I'm going to have to say failing. You know, they've had injuries, I understand. Stafford's getting older. You know, they don't have Aaron Donald. Their defense is kind of letting every offense go right through them. Yeah, they're failing. I thought they'd be playing much better. I thought they'd have a better record. I thought they'd be, you know, and Cooper Kupp's also getting old. He's not the same exact receiver anymore from a couple years ago that won the Super Bowl. The Rams just aren't the same team. It's going to take them a couple years probably to get back to their old self and maybe have a chance of winning Super Bowls. That's the truth. Miami, obviously failing expectations. I thought they might have a chance even at the division and maybe sitting with only 7 losses at the end of the year. But they've definitely right now coming back, you know, at the end of the year, they could be around about the same, maybe even exceeding expectations. Probably about the same. But for failing, about the same is pretty good, especially when your quarterback gets hurt. Tua Tagovailoa getting hurt and coming back, saving your offense, and winning about 4 out of your last 5 games he's been in this year. So they're the key. He's the key of this offense. Of course, Tyreek Hill hasn't gotten the ball a lot, but he's been able to spread out efficiently to different receivers. I do think, though, this team can make it to the playoffs. We shall see what the other AFC teams do. But this team got to keep winning if they want to, especially beat Green Bay tomorrow. Vikings, of course, have been exceeding a lot of expectations. Who knew that Sam Darnold would be playing this well? Who knew they'd be sitting at 5-0 this year? And now they're 9-2. They've won 4 games. They're 4-2 since being 5-0 earlier this year. And this Vikings team, they were questioning with the quarterback situations after losing Kirk Cousins. They were questioning, and Sam Darnold has proved himself to be a star quarterback this year. He's about every game I've seen them play, the past couple games, their offense hasn't done that well. Besides Sunday, their offense hasn't done that well. They haven't been that same team, but when they played the Bears the other day, they almost choked. But they were a better dominant team. You know, if you're telling me like how'd they go? Oh, they're 9-2. Okay, they got a couple losses. No, this Viking team isn't the same as when they were 5-0. You know, dominating the league and blowing out teams. Now again, they did beat the Niners, who really aren't that good, and they did blow out the Texans though. And they almost beat the Lions. So and they did have some wins that were, pretty good. Pretty good this year. Some losses that were questionable, losing to the Rams too, which Rams looked like they were all hyped up, ready to get another win. That looks like when also their offense started to try to come back, get going. They also had Cooper cut back that game, and so honestly, ultra movies. But this Vikings team has looked much better than we have seen. Jay Jettis is finally. He was hurt last year, and he, still could put up a lot of yards. But this Vikings team is definitely reminding me of a couple years ago. I think they were a little more dominant though that year, but more. I think more efficient, more whatever you want to say. I think their wins were more deserving that year than I think this year. But of course, if you wanted to go by all season around 5-0, you could definitely say they are much better than 2022 Vikings. But especially when Dallas blew them out 40-3, it didn't seem like that, did it? Moving on, New England Patriots. Yeah, about the same. Knew they would probably be sucking, and that's what they are. The Patriots are just a bad team, and it's going to take them a little bit to get back into things. And from when they lost Tom Brady, when they had Matt Jones around about probably the year after, did they make this? I don't remember they made the playoffs that year, but they made the playoffs at least 2 years after they lost Tom Brady. But this Patriots team gonna definitely have to find stuff. Drake Mays has potential of being a good QB. They gotta get some receivers, bro. They really do. They need to also. Ramondre Stevenson is not bad, but I think you probably need to get a running back also this draft. The defense, I think, they've been on and off. They're not that good. I think they were better last year as a whole, but it's just still bad. So, Jerome Mayo maybe will get it for New England at one point. New Orleans Saints, they're failing. You definitely could say if this was Saints team was the same exact team from earlier in the year when they blew out Dallas, you could definitely say that, well, they would be exceeding highly expectations. Their defense is one of the best in the league right now. They're probably top. They're at least probably top 5, maybe probably just top 10 of a defense. Their offense is actually was doing pretty well, but now they've kind of gotten better since Derek Carr came back. They got the new head coach. They fired Dennis Allen, so I think that could see some pretty bright future for the New Orleans Saints. But their season just fell apart after that. After losing to beating Dallas and then losing all those games, and then finally beat the Falcons to finally get their win, and they beat the Panthers and all that. Or did they? Yeah, I think they lost to the Panthers. Sorry, they ended up losing to the Panthers. Then they beat the Browns. Sorry, they beat the Cleveland Browns, but. If you could go back, like I said earlier in the video, if you go back all the way at the beginning of the season and start again, you probably would have a brighter future. You could probably be more comfortable with that new head coach, and a much better Saints team. Moving on, the New York Giants. Yeah, about the same, sucking, about 2 wins. Their team is chaotic. The general manager, done with them. Brian Daboll might even get fired. You release Daniel Jones. You don't really have anyone else. Malik Neighbors is basically on the team. If he keeps on that team for like 8 more years, he could waste the potential. Their defense is, I don't even know. Their team is not good, and we know that. And the Cowboys better not lose to them. All I'm gonna say: Jets failing expectations. Some people even had them in the Super Bowl and winning it. That's crazy. They should never had them winning the Super Bowl or anything. But the Jets, though, Aaron Rodgers, definitely not playing like Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams, definitely not playing like Devontae Adams. They fired Robert Saleh. I don't know why. Aaron Rodgers even got the general manager fired. And their defense, pretty overrated. Sauce Gardner's fine. I can't really say he's overrated, but he might be. He's not really overrated now, but if they really were glazing him all the time, he would be definitely overrated because he's not that good as people talk about. Eagles, yeah, they're probably about the same. They're good. They're a good team. I honestly thought they'd be a pretty good team this year. They haven't really technically lost a game since, and they've been beating people pretty good, but I knew they'd be a good team. There's really no surprise what Philly's been doing. I'm not really going to say exceeding. They're probably between exceeding and failing. I'm not really going to say exceeding. They've been playing like a good football team. Like, I knew they'd bounce back. I knew they'd get the right coordinators. I knew Jalen Hurts would get back to maybe a top 5 quarterback level. I knew they'd play much better, and I hated it. I knew Saquon Barkley would help them pretty well, and obviously, they've had a running back 3 different years, but this is the best one they've had, so I knew the Eagles would be much better. Steelers, exceeding expectations. I didn't realize their offense would be more consistent than before. Even though I know they've been scoring field goals, but they're all Russell Wilson. That seems to be that Steelers QB for this year. Hopefully, Justin Fields learns from him and is able to take that into consideration and do well next year. Obviously, George Pickens is a good receiver, and he didn't have the best year last year, but definitely much better this year. He was finally getting back into his old self a few weeks ago. And that defense, they're not that good. They're not as good of a defense, but TJ Watt's the same. TJ Watt's definitely still looking like TJ Watt. So for the Browns, Myles Garrett. But definitely the Steelers team is absolutely doing much better sitting at a 8-4 record. Not many people. I could say maybe majority of people, but and this is exceeding. You could say exceeding expectations, but not as many people thought the Steelers would be doing where they are right now. Niners failing. People have them as Super Bowl contenders. I had them in the NFC Championship game, losing to the Detroit Lions. This San Francisco 49ers team has been full of it this year, an injury situation with Christian McCaffrey, possibly getting the Madden curse, and then people want to blame Kyle Shanahan, which I get. Probably not setting up people the best success for some of these players in football games right now. He's not having a good coaching year. It's simple as that. But the injuries have also gotten way too much. They never can play a full game together. And it seems like when they do, they're always banged up and never playing well. That's exactly what this Niners team just having a bad year. It might have to clean up shop. Seattle, about the same. I knew they'd be probably on, maybe even good, maybe even bad, maybe back and forth. They've been like that all year. Remember, like 3-0, then like 3-3, then they won some, lost some, won some. They've been all like that. I kind of figured they would. I figured they'd be a good team, but they wouldn't be a top-tier team, and they maybe have about 1 or 2 more wins than losses. We can see that right now. Geno Smith's probably having his best year. I've seen him play on the Seahawks. They don't have Tyler Lockett's probably not. And then the others, DK Matt, Kenneth Walker's probably the same. You don't have Pete Carroll, Mike McDonald's making this defense a better defense than we've seen before. Previously we haven't seen a good defense, and now we are for Mike McDonald from Baltimore's defense, who made that defense made that D last year, become a top 3 D or top 5 D in the NFL. Buccaneers. I honestly don't even know. I would say exceeding at first, but they've lost some guys. We'll say about the same. They're right now a mid-team, but I honestly think it's because of injuries, so I think their record is better than they show. So you could probably technically say exceeding, actually, because I honestly thought the Buccaneers, wouldn't maybe be as good. I honestly didn't think they would have. I didn't think Baker would have a better breakout year than I expected. And I honestly think, I know Mike Evans is going to be Mike Evans, but I honestly thought they'd probably be about the same. I think Rashad White and Bucky Irving, better running backs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, doing much better. Cade Otton playing pretty well this year, so that's why I have to say it's a much better all-go-around team than we've seen in the past from Tampa Bay, and it's good for them. They didn't lose Tom Brady, and they're still trying to act like a pretty good team. Not of course the same team when they had Tom Brady, at least his first 2 years, but definitely trying to get a top 3, top 4 team in the playoffs, and maybe even win the division if the Falcons choke or something. Titans, about the same. Knew they'd suck. Next question. Commanders, exceeding expectations. Now, Will Levis is playing better. now after his injury. He's playing better, but don't get me wrong, I didn't think they'd be good, and they aren't. Commanders, even though they've gone on a 3-game losing streak, this team is Jane Daniels is around what I kind of thought. I maybe even thought he'd be Offensive Rookie of the Year, but I don't think he will be now. But I did not expect them to be, you know, a top 10, top 5 team maybe at one point, winning a lot more games. I didn't expect Dan Quinn to turn that team around so fast. I honestly didn't think Austin Eckler would be much better. I honestly thought he was kind of washed, but he's been playing better this year. He got hurt the other day against Dallas. You know, I kind of... their defense isn't even as good. I kind of didn't know. I didn't honestly think Dan Quinn would turn that defense into something that quick, but I thought he'd do something maybe a little bit more effective with it, and I think he has. But he's made this team look much better. He's turned this team into developing better chemistry, you know, because they have new players. I know they had Dallas Cowboys players. You know, they had Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler on some team. You know, Dan Quinn was a defense coordinator for the Cowboys, you know. But you had to turn in the rookie with Jalen Daniels. You had to combine him maybe with Brian Robinson Jr., get Terry McLaurin the ball. He's gotten the ball more. He's not on just a bad team, and you know, he's underrated, and but it was a good way, not just because he never gets the ball. Of course, he wasn't getting the ball that often before, but now with Jalen Daniels, Jane Daniels, he is still, the other day, was still able to find him for a possibly game-tying TD. But he is getting the ball more than last year, and I know he's been a little bit inconsistent getting the ball this year. I still think it's more dependable with Jane Daniels than it was before. You know, you can trust the Commanders to maybe even get back in the situation and maybe even try to maybe come back and win the division. This team is more talented to all go around, and that's what the good job of the Commanders GM did this year to make sure this team could even maybe have a shot to win a playoff game. But those are it. You know, exceeding expectations. Cardinals, Bills, Broncos, Lions, Chiefs, Chargers, Vikings, Steelers, Buccaneers, Commanders. About the same. Falcons, Ravens, Panthers, Packers, Colts, Patriots, Giants, Eagles, Seahawks, Titans. Failing as Bears, Bengals, Browns, Cowboys, Texans, Jaguars, Raiders, Rams, Dolphins, Saints, Jets, and 49ers. All. Well, I want to thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. All the predictions for Week 13 coming later tonight. I'll see you next time, Dog Squad. Peace.